Hi guys, so I've had a few people asking about building the rear suspension on the WRC STX.7 and rather than bore everybody with lots of words, I thought I'd do a video. So a lot of the guys some of the guys have reported, I guess, the suspension binding up, and I thought I'd take you through the tips I used to get my suspension nice and smooth. So one of the things that people will not be used to perhaps with the WRC cars is that the hinge pins are actually a really tight fit in the arms, like that. Like you can see that doesn't move if I hold the pin nice and tight. And I think that's how WRC have designed them to behave. Certainly I've reamed in there quite a bit over the build process and it's never loosened up. What they do is these little fellas here, the balls that go at the end of each of the hinge pins, they rotate, or rather the pins rotate inside those balls. So the key here is making sure you've got a little bit of end float between the bushing assemblies and the hinge pin, and that the rotation here is free, and obviously your outboard hinge pins move nicely. So thought I'd take you through building that. First thing is the pills or the bushings that go inside the alloy mounts on your chassis, these guys. These ones are all nice and clean. They come in a part sprue. You need to make sure that you get all the crap off them, and then they sit in here really flush. I'll pop these ones here in the front. These are the standard kit ones. So I think that's 2.52. And then on the rear hanger, we have the 3.15. So they sit in like so. And these guys, if you look like that, that one's tiniest amount proud, maybe not even half a mil. Same on that side. Anything more than that, and what's going to happen is you're going to pinch the hinge pin and it's not going to move properly. So the next step after mounting those up is we get our arm with the hinge pin installed. These hinge pins by those cars obviously done a bit of work. They're not fresh, it's not a new build, so they've spent about 10 seconds in a power drill just being shined up with some sandpaper because they were looking a little grotty. And I wanted them nice and shiny. So, as per the instructions, all this stuff goes together like this. And if we have a bit of a look at the end of the balls, you can see the shaft or the hinge pin doesn't protrude past the end of the balls. So that's now the dimension, right? The distance between there and there. So I'll drop him into position. Now I'll bore you all by doing this one as well. Same process. Pop that guy on the back. All these settings are kit, by the way, there's nothing fancy here. Works pretty well. Been running this car pretty successfully at Canberra in the 21.5 class. So there, you saw that was a little bit of a tight press, but the arm itself is nice and loose, moves really freely. So the next step is the rear hanger with its plastic bushings. Now this all gets a bit awkward, but this is how I do it. Push that guy under there, and push that guy under there, and just to prove the point, it's now a little bit tight. That one's free. So this is good because I want to show you what happens. So put the screws in underneath here, lock that guy in place. There we go, got some bite eventually. We'll do our next one here. Tension it all up. I'm just going to crack and reset the front ones as well because they weren't actually taken off during this rebuild. And I like to sort of get everything loose. So, with everything a bit loose, as you can see, super free. Of course, you get about 3 laps out of it and then it all falls apart, so let's do the screws up properly. So, now what have we got? Still nice and free. Alright, now some of the guys have gone through that and they're reporting that it's still a little bit bound up. So what you do, get your hex driver, grab him like that, you go whack, like that. Then come back this way, repeat on that side. Bit of force in it. What you're doing is you're moving the arm around on this tight pin a little bit, and making sure you get a little tiny bit of end float. So you should be able to feel it there now. And that's all nice and loose. If the car is still, or the suspension is still tight after you've done a lap, try some smaller shims. So, you know, in troubleshooting this, take that out altogether, put it back together and see if the suspension moves. If it does, then just shim it a little bit less. Like that's a 2mm, start with a 1.5, and then put some 0.2s or 0.1s in to fill in the gap until it's nice. Or you could sand the arm. That's another thing that a lot of people do. Now the next step, the next pinch point are these little fellas. Obviously these are your hubs, and they sit on these hinge pins that drop into here. Actually, before we do that, little trick I learned a little while ago from another RC racer. Get your 3mm reamer, put the hub in there, slide the reamer in, and then you do the whole thing in situ rather than separately. And what you're doing there is you're making sure that the bore of the hinge pin hole lines up correctly with the bore on the hub. And as exciting as it is, we'll do the same on this side. So give that a bit of a crank. As I said though, this car's had a few runs. It's not a new build, so all of this is actually pretty easy. Then we get our 1.5, put this guy over, tension it up, and look at that, gorgeous. And after that, now these guys are a little draggy, but they don't have a big range of movement, so they don't really influence your suspension. And that's it. So, building the rear suspension on your STX.